Most men believe that when a woman suddenly loses interest, it's because she got bored, found someone else, or simply woke up one morning and changed her mind. That's the comforting explanation men tell themselves, because it makes her behavior seem random, unpredictable, or out of their control. But the truth is far darker and more uncomfortable. Women almost never lose interest by accident. They lose interest because something in the dynamic shifted, because a hidden switch inside her mind was flipped, because the invisible tests you didn't even know you were taking, you started to fail. Attraction is not logical. It's not about what you buy her, how often you text her, or how much you care. It's about the psychological state you create inside her. And when that state changes from excitement to predictability, from mystery to certainty, from desire to obligation, her interest starts dying in silence long before you notice. In the beginning, when she first meets you, every moment feels electric. She studies the way you talk, the way you carry yourself, the way you respond to her subtle cues. She feels the thrill of the unknown, the challenge of winning your attention, the dopamine rush of a story that hasn't been written yet. But then, once you're hooked, many men fall into the same trap. They start giving too much too soon. They replace mystery with routine, challenge with comfort, unpredictability with constant reassurance. And while movies and songs tell you that this is love, that texting her every morning, putting her above everything else, and surrendering your independence will keep her happy, the reality is that it has the opposite effect. Her subconscious doesn't register it as love, it registers it as weakness. A woman's psychology is tuned for survival. Throughout history, women were drawn to men who could provide strength, leadership, and stability. These men didn't chase desperately or bend their identity to please. They led, they built, they attracted by being the center of their own world. The paradox of modern dating is that men are told to do the opposite. They're told to worship her, to put her on a pedestal, to sacrifice themselves in the name of being a good guy. But women don't lose interest because you're not nice. They lose interest because you stop being the man they were drawn to in the first place, the man who had direction, the man who wasn't desperate for approval, the man whose presence demanded respect without begging for it. This is why women lose interest so quickly in men who give them everything up front. The attraction mechanism inside her mind needs tension. It needs uncertainty. It needs to feel like she is investing in you, not just being showered with your investment. When she senses that you're more interested in winning her approval than in living your own life, she subconsciously pulls away. She tests your response by being colder, by withdrawing affection, by creating distance. And most men react by chasing harder, calling more, trying to prove their devotion. They dig the hole deeper without realizing the test is being failed. To her, it's proof that you've lost the strength that attracted her in the first place. You're no longer the prize she wanted to win. You've become the man begging to be chosen. Attraction has always been less about what you give and more about what you represent. A man who holds his frame, who doesn't collapse into insecurity, who stays grounded in his purpose, becomes irresistible because he radiates strength. A man who constantly checks his phone, panics when she doesn't reply, and makes her his only source of happiness, suffocates her because he radiates dependence. Women lose interest so quickly because modern men confuse consistency with obsession. They confuse comfort with attraction. They confuse availability with value. But what they don't see is that desire lives in the gap between closeness and distance, between certainty and uncertainty, between what she knows about you and what she doesn't. Kill that gap, and you kill her interest. It's not just biology, though biology plays a massive role. Women's nervous systems are wired to seek novelty and challenge. Dopamine spikes when something is uncertain, when there's suspense, when her emotions go up and down. That's why she feels addicted to the man who texts inconsistently, who is unpredictable, who seems just out of reach. And that's why she feels bored around the man who answers instantly, who is always available, who never challenges her with a sense of independence. She doesn't lose interest because she's cruel or fickle. She loses interest because her biology interprets predictability as stagnation, and stagnation is the opposite of attraction. Social media has amplified this even further. Modern women are flooded with attention at all times. Likes, comments, messages, validation from hundreds of men competing for their approval. In that environment, interest can fade even faster. If you stop creating the feelings she craves, there are countless other options reminding her that excitement is only a swipe away. The modern dating market is like a dopamine casino, and if you stop playing her subconscious game, she doesn't have to walk away empty-handed. She can instantly replace you with someone who sparks that chemical rush again. That's why many men today are blindsided when a woman who seemed deeply interested suddenly ghosts them or cools down without explanation. It wasn't random, it was the moment her brain decided the spark was gone and she was already scanning for something new. The most brutal part is that once her interest dies, it almost never revives. Men believe they can talk her back into desire, that if they explain, if they reason, if they prove how much they care, she'll change her mind. But attraction doesn't work like logic. You can't negotiate desire. Once the subconscious decides you're no longer exciting, no longer a challenge, no longer the man she needs to chase, the emotional circuitry powering her attraction shuts off. And no amount of flowers, dinners, or desperate texts will reignite it. That's why women lose interest so quickly. It's not because they're inconsistent, it's because the hidden conditions for attraction are fragile, and once broken they collapse. Most men never learn this until it's too late. They give everything too soon, they suffocate her with attention, they build their lives around her instead of building their lives first and letting her be drawn to it. Then when she pulls away, they panic, trying to fix something that cannot be fixed by force. The truth is that women's interest isn't maintained by words or promises, it's maintained by the way you carry yourself, by the emotional reality you create, by whether or not she feels she is still in the presence of the man she first desired. Lose that, and you lose her, and often you lose her much faster than you ever imagined. When a woman begins to lose interest, it rarely happens with loud signals. Most of the time, it begins quietly, in subtle ways men overlook. She responds with shorter messages, her tone becomes flatter, her eyes don't light up the same way when she sees you. She begins to create small amounts of distance, delaying her replies, avoiding making concrete plans, acting distracted when you're together. To the untrained eye, these seem like small mood swings, or the natural ups and downs of any relationship. But underneath, her subconscious has already started detaching. The emotional bond that once felt magnetic has begun to dissolve, and her mind is searching for reasons to justify the feelings her body is already experiencing. By the time most men notice, she's already halfway out of the relationship. This happens because attraction in women is rarely sustained by logic. A man can think, I treat her well, I provide stability, I'm consistent, so why would she leave? But her nervous system doesn't respond to bullet points on paper. It responds to emotion, to energy, to the sense of being captivated. If that sensation fades, her interest fades, regardless of how objectively good of a partner you are. That's why women can walk away from men who have given them everything and still feel no guilt. To them, attraction isn't about what you provided, it's about what they felt, and when that feeling is gone, the relationship feels empty no matter how much effort was invested. One of the biggest mistakes men make is believing that consistency and stability are enough to maintain attraction. Yes, women crave security, but security without passion turns into friendship, not romance. Many men unknowingly shift into the role of provider, best friend, or emotional safety net, thinking this will make a woman stay forever. What it really does is kill her desire. She stops seeing you as the man who excites her and starts seeing you as the man who would never leave her no matter what. And once she knows that with certainty, her biology loses interest because there's no longer a challenge, no longer a spark, no longer tension to resolve. This is why women are often more attracted to men who set boundaries, who are willing to walk away, who maintain a sense of independence. It's not about playing games, it's about communicating through your actions that you are not her entire world. When she realizes you can survive without her, paradoxically, her attraction intensifies. She feels she must keep investing to keep your attention, and that investment deepens her interest. But when she feels you have surrendered completely, when she knows she can have you fully no matter what she doesn't feel empowered, she feels bored. Desire doesn't live in certainty, it lives in the dance between closeness and distance, between what she knows and what she doesn't. The paradox is cruel. Men are told that women want endless attention, endless reassurance, endless devotion, and on the surface, many women will say that's true, but their bodies respond differently. Too much attention suffocates, too much reassurance feels needy, too much devotion feels like pressure. She may smile when you text her constantly, but deep down her attraction drops because she feels no space to wonder, no space to miss you, no space to crave your presence. And that is why women lose interest so quickly when men make them the sole purpose of their existence. The very thing you think will keep her close is what drives her away. On a biological level, women are wired to notice when the emotional roller coaster slows down. In the early stages of attraction, dopamine floods her system because of uncertainty. She doesn't know when you'll text, if you'll call, what you'll do next, and that unpredictability keeps her invested. Once she feels she fully knows you, once she can predict every move, her brain no longer releases the same chemicals. Interest is replaced with neutrality, and neutrality eventually turns into indifference. This is why women often describe past relationships by saying, "It just wasn't exciting anymore," or "I didn't feel the same spark." They aren't lying. Their bodies literally stop producing the same emotional responses because the mystery has died. Men who fail to understand this spend their lives chasing lost causes. They believe if they just give more, if they just prove their worth harder, they can reignite what's gone. But attraction doesn't work like a negotiation. You can't earn it back by stacking up good deeds. Once the fire has gone cold, her subconscious marks the relationship as finished. She may linger out of habit or obligation, but her interest has already vanished. That's why so many men feel blindsided when a woman leaves suddenly. To them, it seems like she lost interest overnight. In reality, she had been detaching for weeks, maybe months, while they ignored the signs. By the time she finally walks away, she's already emotionally gone, and there's almost nothing he can do to reverse it. Technology makes this cycle even harsher. Social media gives women endless access to attention, validation, and potential replacements. When she feels her excitement fading, she doesn't have to sit with it. She can post a picture, receive hundreds of compliments, or entertain new conversations instantly. That constant stream of options accelerates how quickly she checks out of a relationship. In the past, a woman might have tolerated boredom longer because opportunities were limited. Today, she has a digital world reminding her that interest is always one swipe away. The man who doesn't maintain her excitement doesn't just risk losing her spark. He risks losing her altogether to the infinite carousel of attention that never stops spinning. The irony is that women rarely admit this openly. They don't consciously know why their interest fades, because it's not something they decide logically. If asked, they might say, "He changed," or "I wasn't feeling it anymore." But the deeper truth is that their biology shut off the attraction because the dynamic stopped feeding their emotional circuits. This makes it even harder for men to understand. They search for answers in the wrong places, thinking it was a specific action or argument that caused the shift. In reality, it was the gradual erosion of mystery, tension, and independence. The flame wasn't blown out, it simply starved until it disappeared. And this is why women lose interest so quickly. Not because they are cruel or unstable, but because they are wired to respond to certain emotional conditions that men often destroy without realizing it. Men confuse devotion with attraction, stability with desire, comfort with passion, and by doing so, they kill the very spark that drew her in the first place. What she craves is the energy of a man who cannot be fully owned, who remains a source of excitement, who continues to live a life beyond her. The moment she feels she has conquered you completely, the conquest ends, and with it, her interest vanishes. If you look deeper into why women lose interest so quickly, you begin to realize it's not just about personal dynamics between two people. It's also about thousands of years of evolutionary programming colliding with modern social realities. Women are biologically wired to seek the highest value partner available to them, because throughout history, their survival and the survival of their children depended on choosing wisely. A woman who settled for a weak, predictable, or uninspiring man risked not only her own safety, but also the future of her bloodline. That primal instinct never disappeared, it simply adapted to the modern world. Today, a woman doesn't need a man to protect her from predators or starvation, but her biology still pushes her to seek excitement, strength, and leadership. When she no longer feels those qualities, her subconscious categorizes the man as unworthy, and her attraction begins to die. Modern society amplifies this effect because it constantly feeds women with reminders of endless options. Social media, dating apps, and the constant stream of validation act like steroids for her evolutionary instincts. Instead of being limited to her local community, she now has access to thousands of men from around the world, all competing for her attention. Even if she never acts on it, the awareness of that abundance shapes her psychology. If her current partner slips, if he stops providing the emotional experiences her body craves, she doesn't feel trapped, she feels entitled to look elsewhere. And because the alternatives are always visible, her tolerance for boredom shrinks dramatically. Where past generations of women might have endured unsatisfying relationships for stability, modern women feel justified in leaving the moment their excitement fades. This constant stimulation has also rewired how quickly women cycle through attraction. Dopamine, the brain chemical responsible for desire and anticipation, thrives on novelty. When everything is predictable, dopamine levels crash. That's why the same man who once gave her butterflies now feels ordinary. It's not that he changed dramatically, it's that her brain stopped reacting to him in the same way. And in a world where novelty is always a click away, her nervous system becomes addicted to the highs of unpredictability. That addiction makes her lose interest faster than ever before, because the threshold for excitement is so much higher. It's like trying to entertain someone who has been spoiled with constant stimulation. Ordinary no longer feels enough. For men, this creates a painful paradox. They are taught to be steady, dependable, and reliable, yet those very qualities often make women lose interest. A man who is stable but uninspiring doesn't hold her attention. A man who is exciting but inconsistent keeps her hooked, even if he treats her poorly. This is why so many women stay obsessed with men who reject them, ignore them, or treat them coldly, while walking away from men who shower them with kindness. It isn't that women consciously choose toxicity, it's that their biology equates challenge with value and predictability with loss of attraction. To her subconscious, a man who is too available feels like a man who lacks options, and therefore lacks value. A man who maintains independence, even at the risk of losing her, feels like a man worth chasing. It's important to understand that this isn't malicious behavior. Most women don't wake up thinking, how can I lose interest in a good man today? They simply respond to unconscious signals. If he gives up his boundaries, she feels he has surrendered his strength. If he prioritizes her above his purpose, she feels he has no mission of his own. If he clings too tightly, she feels suffocated rather than secure. And when those feelings pile up, her biology pulls the plug on attraction. She doesn't rationalize it, she just feels it. That's why when you ask women why they left a good man, their answers often sound vague. I just didn't feel the same anymore, or something was missing. What was missing was tension, mystery, and emotional polarity, the ingredients her subconscious demands to keep desire alive. The tragic part is how many men misinterpret this process. When they sense her slipping away, they respond by giving more of what is already killing the attraction. They text more, buy more gifts, spend more time, sacrifice more of themselves. They confuse effort with effectiveness, but effort in the wrong direction accelerates the loss of interest instead of repairing it. To her, it feels like desperation, and desperation is the fastest way to erase whatever spark remains. That's why so many relationships collapse in a spiral. The more he chases, the less she desires, and the more she pulls away, the harder he chases. By the end, she feels trapped with a man she no longer wants, while he feels punished for loving too much. What makes this even more brutal is that women's loss of interest often coincides with men's deepening attachment. Men tend to bond over time, through consistency and investment. Women, on the other hand, bond through emotion and intensity. That means while his feelings are growing stronger the longer they are together, hers may already be fading if the dynamic has lost its spark. He believes their history guarantees her loyalty, but she feels history has nothing to do with her current state of desire. This mismatch is why men are often blindsided when relationships end suddenly. They mistake stability for security, while she experiences stability as stagnation. In truth, the speed at which women lose interest today is partly a reflection of cultural conditioning. We live in an age that glorifies instant gratification, endless choice, and the rejection of discomfort. If she doesn't feel fireworks constantly, she is told she deserves more. If she isn't thrilled by every moment, she is told to seek a new thrill. This cultural narrative combines with her biology to create the modern phenomenon of vanishing attraction. It isn't just personal, it's systemic. And unless men understand this, they will continue to be caught off guard, giving everything to relationships that collapse in silence while women chase the next high. So when you ask why women lose interest so quickly, the answer is simple but devastating. Because their biology demands excitement, their culture normalizes leaving, and their environment floods them with options. What feels to men like random betrayal is actually the predictable outcome of a system that rewards novelty and punishes predictability. Attraction, in this landscape, is fragile. And unless it is constantly nurtured with the right balance of independence, challenge, and polarity, it will die, not slowly, but suddenly, as if it was never real to begin with. The brutal truth most men never want to hear is that when a woman loses interest, it is almost always permanent. Unlike men whose attraction can revive with effort, persistence, or even nostalgia, women's attraction operates more like a switch. Once it flips off, the emotional circuitry that once made her crave you is rewired to see you as ordinary, uninspiring, or even burdensome. That's why so many men try to fix things with grand gestures, only to be met with indifference. They think the right words, the right gift, or the right apology will reignite her desire. But desire doesn't respond to negotiation. It responds to tension, polarity, and emotional energy. Once those are gone, the woman you knew is gone too. This is why breakups often seem so cold. A man might still be deeply in love, willing to fight for the relationship, but she already detached months earlier when her interest began to fade. By the time she leaves, she has already grieved the relationship internally, rehearsed her exit, and often entertained the idea of someone else. That's why she can walk away without looking back while he collapses under the weight of confusion. For her, the ending is not sudden. It's the final step of a process that started the moment her attraction died. And for him, the ending is catastrophic because it feels like betrayal, when in reality, it was biology doing its work behind the scenes. Understanding this reality doesn't mean resenting women. It means recognizing how fragile attraction is and how quickly it can evaporate if misunderstood. Women don't lose interest to be cruel. They lose interest because their subconscious demands they chase intensity, not routine. They are biologically wired to pull away when a man gives up his independence, his purpose, or his edge. And while men may complain about this unfairness, the truth is that it's the same mechanism that drives women to be fiercely loyal and invested when they are attracted. The same biology that makes them lose interest quickly also makes them pour themselves into a man who maintains the qualities she craves. It's not cruelty, it's selective intensity. What makes this harsh truth even more dangerous in modern times is how unforgiving the environment has become. In the past, a woman might have tolerated dips in attraction because social pressure, family, and community expectations discouraged leaving. Divorce was rare, options were limited, and her reputation depended on endurance. Today, the culture tells her the opposite. If she's unhappy, if she's bored, if she feels unfulfilled, she's encouraged to move on, to find herself, to never settle. Combine that message with constant access to new men online, and the speed of lost attraction turns into the speed of replacement. When she checks out emotionally, she no longer fears loneliness, she has a safety net of endless options waiting. For men, this creates a world where relationships feel unstable, fragile, and temporary. Many men give up altogether, deciding that the risk of investing in a woman only to lose her interest is too great. Others adapt, learning to cultivate independence, mystery, and strength so that they never collapse into neediness. These men aren't playing games, they are simply responding to the reality of how attraction works. They realize that maintaining a woman's desire requires more than devotion. It requires being the kind of man whose presence continually sparks her biology, whose independence keeps her invested, whose boundaries remind her that she is not the center of his universe. He is the universe, and she feels lucky to orbit around it. The key to understanding why women lose interest so quickly is realizing that attraction is not about logic or fairness. It's about biology and psychology working in ways that often defy what men believe should matter. A man can provide love, stability, loyalty, and still be abandoned because he failed to maintain the spark. To most men, that feels cruel. To her subconscious, it feels necessary. Her body craves the man who excites her, not the man who suffocates her with devotion. Her mind justifies the shift by inventing reasons, but the real reason is simple: she no longer feels the pull, and once that pull is gone, she cannot manufacture it again. That's why so many men say, "She just changed overnight." No, she didn't. She simply revealed what had been happening beneath the surface for weeks or months. Her smiles got weaker, her replies slower, her attention drifted. The signs were there, but men missed them because they believed love was enough to hold her interest. Love matters, but love without attraction is friendship, and friendship without desire is the death of romance. When men confuse the two, they fail to see that keeping her heart requires more than consistency. It requires maintaining the very qualities that made her heart race in the first place. So why do women lose interest so quickly? Because they are biologically tuned to respond to strength, independence, and polarity, not endless devotion. Because the modern world gives them infinite alternatives the moment they feel bored. Because attraction is not built on stability alone, but on tension that must be sustained. And because most men destroy that tension by giving up their frame, their purpose, and their individuality the moment they think they've won her. The second she feels she doesn't have to invest anymore, the game ends and her attraction with it. For men, the lesson is painful but powerful. Stop expecting women to love you for your effort alone. Stop thinking devotion is enough to secure desire. Stop believing that once you have her, you can relax and she will never change. Attraction doesn't work like that. If you want her interest to last, you must remain the man she was drawn to, the man with purpose, the man with mystery, the man with strength, not because you're playing a role, but because that's who you truly are when you're at your best. When you live your life with that energy, you won't have to chase her interest, it will chase you. And if you fail to understand this truth, if you ignore the psychology and biology at play, you will keep experiencing the same painful cycle, women losing interest faster than you can comprehend, leaving you broken and confused. But if you embrace it, if you accept that her attraction is fragile and must be earned continuously through the way you live, you will no longer be surprised when other men complain that women are fickle. You will know that the problem is not that women lose interest too quickly, it's that most men stop being the kind of men worth desiring.